aha moments, or big things that have been causing problems, which when they read the information, it gives them an aha to move beyond. And that really is the point of giving this information. It's really just to give a whole package out there that people can say, oh, I like that, I need that, I need to hear that, and then help move forward, because I think that in this time that we're in with humanity, that's where we're coming to a very different sense of community. Community in the past is a very different meaning, I feel, from the community of light that we're moving into. And I believe that's where we're headed. So just wanted to say that little message before we before we begin.
Beautifully said. And just for anyone who hasn't heard David before, when he refers to his team, these are high galactic beings. They are not human employees, as I often
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Where he's coming from. And I reached out to David because very recently I heard via Archangel Raphael, channeled by the beautiful, wonderful Kelly Kalodny, Archangel Raphael was talking about our telomeres currently being repaired. And then I heard David in some of his channelings and work talk about telomeres being repaired as well. So I'd love to just dive into this whole area of telomeres. And do you want to share with the audience your understanding of telomeres, David, and what's happening with this repair?
Yeah, definitely. It's a great place to start. So yeah, it was a little while ago when I was working a lot with the Elohim, and they were bringing a series of activations and templates through, which were to do with helping the energetic linkage between cells, DNA, and other things as well. And one of the aspects of this, which came forward in one of the aspects they did, which was, let me see, probably around 22. I might get the year wrong. I think it was about 22. But anyway, what they were saying is that, and to give an explanation to your audience for those who are new to telomeres, so essentially, we have chromosomes in our body, and in females it's X and X, so they make an X shape, and in men it's an X and a Y. So what happens is the chromosomes are sort of a winding up of the DNA. So if you unwind a chromosome, it unleashes into a full strand of DNA. And so DNA wraps itself up into the form of a chromosome, in a very simple way of saying it. Now the endpoints of the top of the X's and the bottom and of the Y, excuse me, is what they call telomeres, and they're like little end caps, and they regulate and decide on the replication, on the unfolding, the unwrapping, and the replication of a particular strand of DNA. And there was a biologist some time ago that recognized that there's only so many replications that the telomeres can handle before they stop working. So in other words, you get a finite number of DNA replications before that process stops, and it's right, that's it, that's your lot. And so in a way, when you look at human evolution, a newborn baby, beautiful, when you look into the eyes of a newborn baby, you can see the light, the source presence, the high self presence beaming from that child. And then they grow and develop, everything's great, and then all of a sudden, at a certain age, everything just goes, it just starts to fall away. And what it comes back to me is that, when biologists talk about it, they talk about there's a particular protein called telomerase, and that each replication uses up more and more of that protein, telomerase. And so until basically it's essentially depleted. And what they talk about is when they look at the length of your telomeres on the edge of the chromosome, the longer they are, the more replications you have left, and the smaller they are, the less and less you have left. Now, to me, looking at just in that way, just purely structurally, biologically, there are big pieces missing in my view, and what the teams have told me. Now, one of the things that's happened as humanity has gone through this sort of densification cycle from being, I say, in a relative term, somewhat connected beings down to very, very densified and fairly disconnected beings. And what I mean by that is that as we go down into density and we've gone through this experiment of what would it be like to have a high disconnection from our source self, our higher selves, and then to learn to go back and remember who we really are. So that involves, what necessarily involves a very, very diminished connection with our higher selves and with our source self. And so the access to the liquid intelligent light, you might call it, that flows into cells, that flows into and out of DNA, there's a very beautiful, intricate system of light weaving and light flowing, all of those things. That's a big subject in itself, and I'm just trying to break it down in very simple terms. But essentially what happens is that when that access to the higher self diminishes within the DNA and the telomeres themselves, the source intelligence or the higher self intelligence has limited access to both influence, flow, change, update, do all the other things that need to take place. And that reminds me about many stories of masters in the past who, people will have seen it in different cultures, such as ancient Indian culture and other texts that are around, talking about beings that were around for hundreds to thousands of years. Well, in order to have done that, their telomere and chromosomal function would have had to have been very different, because if they just had the same replication span that we have, well, you've got maybe 80 to 100 years if you're lucky, So I believe that what happens is, the more that I communicated with my higher self and my teams about this, and they often impulse me rather than just having a direct communication. I'll ask an idea and I get a response. Is that there is a one-to-one correspondence between the biological state of your being and your access to, and your cell's access to, your source and high self-intelligence. Wow. Because when you think about it, what is, yes, and I believe that's the key, and I have to emphasize that to people, that really is absolutely key. And one of the beautiful things about that is that does not rely on anything outside of you. You have it all inside of you right now. Nothing can take it away. You can be distracted, you can be convinced to look elsewhere. But the second you take that journey to start looking within, the gateway starts to open up. And your access to your higher self, your merging and blending, your alignment with your higher self, your source self, starts to kick into high gear. And that's the process you take. And then bit by bit, that energy starts to flood and break through the barriers, the energetic barriers. And those barriers can be many things. So over many lifetimes that we've had, we've added many traumas, misdeeds or mischoices that we've made. They all package in and get compressed down. And all of those act as barriers to this, what I would call a sort of a liquid, high vibrational light that flows in a almost like a plasma type of way. And and there's more to that story as well. That's another whole conversation of itself. But essentially, as we work on ourselves, as we break away those old belief systems, the old traumas, the emotional dross that has built up over many lifetimes, that light gets more access. It can break things down, it can lift those things up for you, and you can release them and let them go, as I've talked about in the past. But as it does so, it gets more and more active, and it becomes more prevalent within things such as chromosomes, the unwrapped DNA strand, the telomeres, and things like that. Suddenly, those things now start to operate from within the divine intelligence that is now flowing through them. Now their function becomes very different, and that's the exciting thing. And I believe as humanity, what we're having now is we're going through this transition from having been a civilization that was very dense, extremely limited access to higher selfness and source selfness, where biological function was literally just like a photocopier. So, every time the chromosome would unwrap and a DNA strand would replicate itself, or cells would, divide and split themselves, essentially, any damage that came along with that would be photocopied the copy would come out. That would then now be the template of reference for copying from. Oh, there's a bit of oh, that's okay. We'll put that through anyway because we've got nothing else to go by. That's the only copy we have now. And it goes on and on. So, literally bit by bit, more damage, more destruction, it just goes down and down and down.
So hence aging and chronic illness and going grey and losing our faculties, and because the replication gets poorer and poorer.
It's exactly like the photocopier. That's a beautiful example, because if anybody tries this with a photocopier, put any image in, put that in, it comes out, put that copy back in the original, do that, and keep doing that, and see how many cycles you can go through before it becomes a mulch mess that you can't even recognize anymore. And there is the key point again. If there was intelligent guidance, if there was intelligent handling and remodeling at every moment of that aspect, what would happen then? And I believe that's what's starting to take place. And so the key really is you have access to that well, that infinite well of source intelligence, the higher self within, and to practice the connection, the opening. Your higher self is your best friend, your best ally. It knows you inside and out, from the very most fundamental particles of you to the longest hair strand, whatever you want to say. And it knows what brings you the greatest joy, the greatest expansion. And it understands the path of evolution that you've opted to go through, and the puzzle pieces that you wanted to solve. And so it's always there for you, rooting for you, giving you little impulses. Oh, yeah, watch that bit there. Oh, there's a little bit here coming out. Don't worry, it's just coming out. There's a lot of interaction that most people are not necessarily aware of that's happening with your higher self all the time. It doesn't stop. And now, when you imagine, and there was a story I remember hearing about Yeshua being able to hold a dead stick, a twig that he picked up off the ground, was able to literally channel this source energy straight into this twig, and suddenly the leaves would grow, and it would just become as if it was just, fresh off of a tree. Now, that's a great example, because when you think about it, how quickly that took place. Now, what did that? What told the structural components within that twig to grow a leaf, become healthy again, do this, do that? It was the source intelligence. He had such an open gateway inside himself, the open access to source intelligence. It can come through and do anything. It can reshape, reform, organize any aspect of structure, because all that structure has come from source. But because we are in a game of free will, and source respects free will, we have used our free will to choose to descend into density, and so that is respected. But when you choose your free will to go in and connect and allow that source energy to come back inside, well, that is when miracles happen, and that, I believe, is where miracles always happen from. It's always the source intelligence within. And so, yeah, coming back to the telomere aspect and what you said, the beautiful and refined organization of all matter, all structure, be they cellular or just generic matter all around, when a sufficient level of source love intelligence is permeated in there, is allowed in there, that is when everything is optimally maintained all the time, And I believe that is where, going back into past scriptures and tales of people who lived for thousands of years, they had access to that because they had a sufficient level of access there in order to have that duration, And from my teams, the impression I get from them is that, these very, very advanced high vibrational beings, they live in perfect biological synergy with their higher selves, and it's all maintained, all flowed exactly as it needs to be, and that is the kind of level that they operate from. And it's funny, to us it might seem like, that's a magical quality, what an amazing thing to happen. Well, the truth is, that's a normal state of being. We have descended into a very sort of abnormal way of being. And so this cycling thing we go through, when we get born, we start to fall to pieces, and then we have another shot, and so on, is not a normal living condition for the vast majority of beings out there. I know there are different experiments that are going on, so there are different ways that beings want to experience limitation or lack of, they want to experience what it's like to be, somewhat disconnected or in a state of not remembering their true self as we are here. But the large state of beings out there do not operate like that at all. And, they are beautiful examples of how, when you have that access, how easy it is for that living intelligence to maintain every single aspect of you effortlessly. It's not even a thing.
So, David, you've talked about the telomeres being conduits of light.
Oh, yes.
Does that therefore mean that that is going to be part of the process of moving towards the light body, of losing density and moving towards the light body? And also, what effect is that going to have on us now and into the future? Does that mean from now on we are going to start to live longer and be healthier as a result of embodying more light? Is that how it's going to work for us?
That's definitely my impression, yes. And I believe that the way the teams love to leave it, they try not to spoil too much of the surprise too soon, because they get such delight of watching humanity discover these things for themselves, which is part of the beautiful process we're in. But yes, having an elevated, the more you can elevate the infusion of your higher self within your body, the infusion of your source self, and your higher self is there's many levels to it, but essentially it's the extensions of source self, coming out through the dimensional layers that eventually ends up with a tip of it being within you. So, essentially they're one and the same, but when I talk about the higher self, it's the level of source intelligence that's operating in a vibration just slightly higher than you, or even just above that as well. And so coming back to your question, so again, once we reach a sort of, it's almost like a critical state of, there's a level of where a sufficient level of source level of intelligence that goes through you, that flows through your DNA, your chromosomes, flows through the telomeres, where those blocks to those, the energy blocks that are there are sufficiently cleared so that liquid light intelligence can flow through. Suddenly, those structures become informed, they become intelligently overseen, and they become intelligently guided by that living light, that source love intelligence. Then, when that threshold is met, I believe that is when things kick in, like you mentioned there.
So, are we close to that sort of tipping point?
My teams are saying some closer than others, and they're saying that there's no comparison, so they want to be clear on that. It's not like, some are better in the race than others. They're saying, no, don't think like that. They're saying that what you need to understand is each soul has incarnated with a specific unfolding, and a specific unfolding to resolve certain puzzle pieces. And in some cases, that takes longer for them to do it than others, because some patches are particularly heavy and particularly difficult, and they take a longer period of time to resolve than others. And so they're saying, please never look at anybody else as being, oh my God, I'm behind because look how far they are. That is not in truth. That is not how it's working at all. And they're saying, they're like we were discussing before, they're reminding me of the example that a lot of souls that have developed themselves being very capable problem solvers in very dense, puzzle pieces, incarnate with very, very particular heavy things to sort out. And it might seem, oh God, I always feel down. I look at them over there and they're always so jolly and bright, and I'm always going through this crap. What is, why is this? Am I behind? Am I not as good? No, it's nothing like that. Everything that you are going through is what you selected yourself to go through as a puzzle piece solver. And that's an important thing to remember. You are here as a puzzle piece solver. The puzzles that you are working on are different from everybody else, and so is everybody else's, And so you have a particular sort of affinity, or each of us do, with the particular puzzles or the pieces that we want to solve, to add to the great tapestry, which is the grand solution for this project Earth. It's like a I don't know, a 10,000, 1 million piece puzzle, or whatever you want to call it, and each puzzle piece is something that we are working on, and when we finish with our piece, it goes in. But the puzzle isn't solved until everybody has put their piece in and it all comes together. That's a better way of looking at it. And so you don't solve a puzzle all in one go. You do it a little bit over here and a little bit over there. That's kind of how it works. So, yeah.
So, David, it's really interesting because, I've banged on in a lot of recent videos about this particular period of time, because the astrology has a very unique configuration from 2025 to 2027. It's reinforced by Ra's channeling for human design, Richard Rudd's Gene Keys work, the end of the Kali Yuga, end of the 12,000-year descending cycle of the Yugas, the indigenous prophecies of the Maya and the Hopi and the Quera, many, many cycles I can refer to that have highlighted this concentrated, accelerated period of evolution. But in your view, from your team's information, why is this kind of regeneration of the telomeres happening at this time? Why is it special?
So teams, do you want to chime in on that and my higher self? Okay, so they're saying that it's happening this particular time because they're using the term vibrational gateways are open enough.
Wow.
And they're saying what that means is, so when I'm hearing them, telepathically and empathically as well. So I feel what they're saying and I hear what they're saying, and I'm just repeating what they're saying to me. A little bit like, just to explain to people who are new to this, So there's channeling, which I'll be doing at the end of this, where, source intelligence comes right through and just speaks through. But there's empathic and telepathic communication where you can hear, but they're not speaking through you. You repeat what they're saying. So, okay, sorry, my teams, I just wanted to explain that. So they're saying that in order to get to this stage, a sufficient amount of dross, as they call it, the being is going dross, had to be cleared in order to facilitate the optical flows. And this being is saying what they mean by that, this is an Arcturian being, is that there are kind of okay, so just go slowly. I think I missed what you said there. They're saying, imagine it like this beautiful living optical system of flowing of light fibers, like almost the way you see lightning, okay? That lightning follows these, physicists will tell you that, it's just going from one potential point to another potential point, and there's a difference, so it can flow across and cause a flash. I don't see it that way, but but they're saying it's a little bit like those. These are sort of light plasma flows, and there's living intelligence that is beyond structure, that doesn't, because plasma itself is still has a quality of structure in it, even though it's a very high vibrational structure. But with this kind of thing, it's something that is beyond structure itself. Now, in order for that to flow, they're saying that certain things have to be switched back on. It's a little bit like they're saying, okay, can you give me a really good, clear example of this that you would, something that people can reference from? Okay, they're saying, like, think of the tree root system. If a tree comes, if it's planted into an old building site where there's rubble and debris and foundational stuff in the way, it's going to encounter a lot of blocks. And those roots aren't going to be able to just connect through, root out, and start to create the flow of water and minerals and other things that it needs. In a very similar way, it's sort of analogous with this, that there are certain sort of light connectivities that need to be set up. And in order for that to happen, certain dense blockages, old things that have just really switched things off, need to be moved out of the way. And until that is done, that particular light connectivity and flow just simply cannot take place. And they're saying because they were placed there by free will, by our experiences, by our reactions to experiences, and a whole host of other things, they have to be undone using our choices as well. And so, they're saying, in truth, the light can just dissolve through them. But because we don't realize and remember that we have placed them there by our own free will, they can't be removed in such a way until I see it now. Okay, no, I don't want that anymore. I want that to be gone, Then it can be dissolved, and the light can flow through and dissolve it and do what it needs to do. And this comes back largely to when people say, why can't I really said I wanted to get this clear, and I'm really going through this all the time. When that happens, it's because on a conscious level, you haven't fully become aware consciously of the whole aspect of the problem yet. And we have this unconscious, which is the burial ground of all the stuff we didn't want to face or own, which gets pushed down. And that's where you encounter the difficulties, because we have used our conscious power to create this and push and compact all this stuff down. Now we have to undo it and just say, okay, go through the allowance process. I feel it now. Okay, my high self, help me feel and see what it is within me that I'm not owning, that I'm not acknowledging, or that I cannot see consciously yet, that I need to see. Then you'll go through and you'll start to see and feel it. Stuff will come up. You might feel a bit rotten for a while as the dross comes up. That's all part of the process. Suddenly, now you have a conscious, full spectrum view of what it is that you have chosen to put in place. Now you can choose to let go of it and undo it. Now the light can get in there and do its work, because you have undone your free will choice to have it there and hide it away. It's a little bit like a treasure chest box that I'm going to put that stuff, I'm going to hide that, bury it, yeah, that's gone. Yeah, I don't deal with that anymore, Well, it's still there, and it's still operating, and it's still doing its stuff in your energy field. And so now you've got to go find it again, dig it up, and let that thing out, to let it go. So in a way, that's kind of like what it is, And so that, in a way, very much akin to your question of what you asked, and just a flavor of what a lot of people, I get the feeling, are going through now. And my own experience, because I've gone through a lot of things where I've hit the wall and, really got frustrated, and, it happens to us all. And what my teams always tell me is this, okay, it's fine, just relax, just calm down, and know that what is coming up is such an agitation because you have put such immense pressure to keep it down. And that is the strength of your energy reaction to what's coming up. If you can just breathe and relax and say, nothing's going wrong, everything's going right. This is coming up to be seen, but it's a lot of energy at the same time, and my resistance to it is also coming up parallel to it as well. As it clears, when you finally have that clear, you actually feel the influx of new light that can now go into places that they couldn't go before because of your choices to have the block there in the beginning. Now they can go into places, and now they can begin an even deeper elevation and upliftment. And that's kind of the cycle of healing and puzzle piece solving that we do. Bit by bit, you get a bit and you feel elated. Oh, there's another bit coming up. Oh, hang on a second. Plateau. Get into the, oh, yeah, I release that. Now I'm going up again. And it does this, it's sort of, and I'm sure everyone can empathize in one way or another with that process,
Yeah, because I've heard you speak, and other people have as well, that this is a completely unique evolutionary jump for humanity and other species too. So again, why now? Why now, in your view, and does it actually open up our multidimensionality as well?
Yes, that's exactly what I was glad you came back to that, because that's what I was going to jump in next with. Yes, it's exactly that. So I feel, okay, my teams are just sort of saying that over to me. I don't think they want to add anything more. So my feel is that it's exactly what they were saying, that we have reached a certain threshold point where enough collective and individual dross has been removed, where this can now come into play, where this place where the intelligent source love light, our higher selves, can come in and start making inroads into the aspect of the telomeres structures, and so start to move them into that high intelligence oversight or overseeingness or flow, whatever you want to call it. There's not very many words in the English vocabulary that, well, I don't think there's any that adequately describe the beauty and just the amazing delight of what is actually taking place inside, because the trouble with science is, and I'd like to add this if you don't mind, is that having come through those circles of being a scientist, I can tell you that everything is so structurally orientated. Everything is a function of structure, and structure is of some function. But it's like, well, even if that were true, what created the entire fabric of that structure in the first place to function in the ways that you claim is purely structural only? It makes no sense. It's a cat chasing or a dog chasing its own tail. It's never going to get there. And or the chicken and the egg story. What if pick one? But ultimately, it comes down to the fact that our DNA was sculpted. I know there have been some alterations by different races and so forth, but ultimately it was sculpted by source intelligence for the purpose of creating these beautiful suits we call human bodies, to have these amazing physical experiences, of structural experience, of visceral experiences in, which are a delight when it all is on and working, and it's a beautiful experience to be had. But because of this densification, this lowering down, we've lost so much of our sensorial nature, our ability to feel high-dimensional energetics. Even some of the denser ones, some people say, and I've had experiences where I could feel so little, it's like, God, I feel numb, back in the days before I began. And what we're going through now is that's all coming back online. The stuff is clearing out. These are the purges that people, talk about a lot, that there's overweighing them and they're really having hard times going through. Well, this is the old coming out. It's a very necessary and very good thing, because once that's out of the way, now everything in terms of this living light intelligence can now get in there to a deeper and deeper and deeper level, start organizing things and bringing things back. It's very much like I said with that story about Yeshua, just holding a twig, dead twig, like dried out, no moisture in it at all kind of thing. And suddenly these leaves start appearing as if it was, a fully alive, living, aspect of a tree. But what gives it life? The life in it is the living source intelligence. That is life. And it reminds me when Yeshua said, I am the life. I believe what he meant is source intelligence is the life. And this is an example of, a human body really embodying source intelligence and what you can be. And he made mention that he said, all of you can do this and more, and you're going to do more. And I believe what he mentioned there was that, the human race is going to undergo such a profound evolutionary expansion. You are going to open up to source intelligence to a level that has never been done before, and that's another thing I believe that, to add into this ascension mix, that they've said before that it's never been done, this full planetary ascension has never been done before. But I believe one of the exciting things that the teams are really waiting for is to see what happens when humanity reaches such a level of synergy and merging with source intelligence within the human body. What can you do then? That to me, I feel a lot of the energies that the beings feel, they are so excited about that point coming forward, because there's so many abilities that we don't even know of yet, that are so miraculous in their nature, that are going to come online. But yes, to come back to your question, I believe that in a way is explaining why now. Is really because the timing, the threshold has been met for that to be able to take place, because of the collective work, our individual work, and also the cosmic timing of things. It's all coming together. And I believe that's most likely why you're seeing that in the charts that you do, because there is this alignment. There is this massive environmental energy taking place outside of us, though exactly the way the source intelligence is wishing it to unfold. It also involves Gaia's intelligence as well, our individual intelligence and the collective intelligence, all working together in this beautiful divine symphony, and it's all working out so beautifully.
And it's very interesting, David, because we have a particular aspect which is already operational. It's a conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, but it's going to become exact 20th of February next year. And they're both holding hands at 0 of Aries, which is the very first degree of the zodiac. So that, to me, astrologically, is pure potential. Pure potential. And so I'm seeing next year, again, we're back to linear time, but I'm seeing next year as being quite a launch period for humanity, whether we're looking at late February or there's another big shift in late April and, late sort of early summertime, Northern Hemisphere, I get a sense of launch, that the momentum is building in terms of the consciousness and then there's a leap. There's some kind of a leap into pure potentiality.
Yes.
Do you share that at all, or?
You know, it's interesting, as you were saying that, I could feel the source intelligence high self within me showing me a wave that is coming. It's a very, very big wave. And this is a wave that has been triggered from within. And I believe, I have a feeling this is maybe information that maybe will be coming through in the channeling I do at the end here, because I felt that was quite a strong sort of like warm up to that. But I feel, yes, so my higher self, would you like to add anything to that? Okay, so my higher self is saying much of that information will leave till the channeling, because it'll be a little bit clearer. But for now, is there anything that you would like to add on to this? So my higher self is saying you are not wrong. There are major, major things that are going to come into play. I feel there's almost sort of like a reluctance to give too much detail, because I feel that... okay, can you explain why there's you don't want to give too much information on that right now? I'm so smiling. It's to do with human nature. They're saying the trouble is that if you know too much about something ahead of time, they're saying humanity has a tendency to pin themselves on a subject matter rather than just allowing yourself to unfold through the process. So they don't want to provide too much incentive for people to do that.
Otherwise we'll miss the journey.
They're saying there are important things to pick up while going through the journey, and that's very important. And so they're saying we do appreciate that the mind wishes to know certain facts because it likes to know ahead of time, you know, what's coming in the game kind of thing. But they're saying that's another unfolding that humanity is going through. You are shifting from a mind-centric civilization to a heart-centered one. And I know I've spoken of this before because this is something very important to me as well. Is, you know, the Arcturians came through one time, and again, just to repeat, that their advanced state spiritually, their advanced state mentally, and the organic technologies they have are just profound. But, you know, most people would think, oh, they've got advanced tech, oh, they must be really mentally cool, you know. But the truth is, they were the ones that came through and said, you are going to understand there is a world of difference between living as a heart-centered being and a mind-centric being. And then when you live in your heart center, you're going to be open to vistas, and you will open vistas that you would never, ever be able to do being a mind-centric being. You know, and yeah, that in of itself is a big conversation. But I believe that's the thing. There is such a beauty in the experience of something, rather than the mind saying, okay, got the plan, yeah, that's where we're going. You know, you know, the walking through the forest is not the same as having a plan of what you're going to do and where you're going to go and what's going to be happening.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I believe that's they're smiling, they're saying that's kind of what they were suggesting. But it's, I feel like they're saying there is going to be some information coming through from source about the wave, but not enough to engage people in that particular way that they were speaking of before. It's all about, and they're saying they would ask people to do when that information and energy does come through, feel the energy. It's the energy experience that's the important thing, not so much the information that's being said or the words that are being said. It's the energy that comes from, you know, that the source wishes to emanate. So that's to feel in on, definitely. But yes, so I'm not sure if I entirely answered your question there, but in a roundabout way.
I think it's reassuring for people to know that we are in process. And we're not talking about this 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you know, we are in process. And then people can relax into the feeling of it, you know, in a reassured way. And I think that's an important part of it too.
Yeah, it is. They just gave me a picture there. They're saying, about 10 years ago, picture yourself standing on a beach, looking at a beautiful ocean, thinking, oh, wouldn't it be great to be in there? That's what we thought we were heading towards. Now we are in the ocean and it's up to above our knees. That's where we're at now. That's what they're saying. So they're saying you are no longer preparing to go into something, it's already here. You are now filling yourselves up very bit by bit with the very beautiful and magical energy which is source intelligence. And that is where we are. And in fact, they're saying what they're urging people to do is let go of the mindset that we are heading to something. They're saying you are already in it now. It's already started. And that's a great encouragement to people and saying, enjoy as you take deeper and deeper steps into this beautiful ocean of you, the truth of you. Enjoy the sensations. Yes, as you go down deeper and deeper, any mud that was stuck to you is going to clean off. It's going to come off. It's just a natural part of going down into the depths of yourself. It has to come out the way to allow that to infuse into you. And just try to remind yourself that it is actually a beautiful unfolding. The removal of the old and the entrance of the truth of you is a very, very beautiful, profound, and very deep thing to behold. And there are so many beings that delighted watching humanity go through this, because of what's actually happening and what's unfolding. And they say they do understand how difficult it can seem sometimes, but if you can remind yourself of the necessity of this off-coming, for a phrase, of the old, which has to come out of the way so that the new can take its place and rebuild you into the new you. That's a very simple, very elegant way of seeing it, I feel. But yes, we are in the ocean now, and we're just every day, every week, we're just walking bit by bit, deeper and deeper and deeper. And that is, that's the first time I've ever heard them say that like that, and that's a very beautiful thing.
Yes, and it sounds like very much a one-way process as well. However much when we hit a wall, we might think, oh no, I'm going backwards. Actually, you're not. This is a one-way process. And talking of the ocean, David, what role does water have to play in this? Because my understanding is that water is condensed light, and that water is actually running ahead of us in this whole ocean.
Yeah, I would say that in truth, every atom, every structure is in fact compressed light. And if you think of the subatomic particles in an atom, they're under such an immense magnetic compression. That compression is so immense that if you were to suddenly release the magnetic interlocks there, that the sudden rapid expansion would be, it would be pretty big, that's for sure, just off of just one atom itself. That's what my teams and have mentioned before. But but all structure essentially, I use this analogy a lot, where if you think of an ocean where there is nothing in there at all, it's pure water, and then suddenly the source intelligence that created the body of that water suddenly decides, let's crystallize the water. Let's make structural components in the water, in the fluid itself. And now let's bring them together and make, these beautiful extended molecules, and they can then turn into DNA and then cells and then so on and so forth. So everything that we have of us is a fractalized extension or a sequence compression, if you like, of source intelligence into form. But us as a more refined, more sort of high vibrational form of source can go into that suit and, be in it, feel it, interact with it, use it in these beautiful ways. And, most of our makeup is the liquid of water. And the thing about water is, because of its fluidity and other things, it makes it that much more accessible. And one of the things that my teams always say is that, when you're going through purging, just jump in the shower. It's far more easy for them to help you clear when you're in the shower, in a bath, because of the energy conductivity of water itself. And so, in a way, water is a good example of a medium, or because the body of water of the ocean has a consciousness of itself, just like our structure as a physical body has a consciousness, or being such as our cells inside it. So does the body of water. And so in that way, yes, they're all these beautiful extensions of source, but the nature of water is, because of its fluidity, its ability to just fluidly change and morph and do things, it makes for such a beautiful conductor of those energies around you. And so, going into the ocean, going into a shower, that's one of the great ways that, I find for myself particularly, that the teams have that much more ability to work with you and to help you clear and move things forward. But yeah, so that's the way I see it, is that in fact there isn't anything that has not come from source. And some people might say, well, where on earth did darkness come from and all of that nonsense, Well, the answer to that is, I remember one being saying once, well, when you see something with your third eye vision, the more light source intelligence it is, it appears light and luminescent. The more absent from that structure that source intelligence appears to be, you see it as absence or darkness. And so essentially, there's no such thing as darkness. Darkness is just an apparition, or, this appearance within our ability to see energetically that appears, oh, look, there's a real diminished presence of source love light. Truth is, it never went anywhere. All of the structure in there is always from source intelligence. But now, again, remember the free will component. So as we choose to either, ask source to move away and diminish ourselves, or enrich ourselves with source energy, this all comes back to exactly full circle to the question you asked before. Why do we fall to pieces? Why do things go into chaos? Why do things just break down and go bad? Well, it's because of the diminished level of source intelligence. And that's the way I see it. And that's the way my teams have definitely spoken about that. And that's the simplicity of what we're going through. All we're doing is we're undoing our choices to be in this experiment of what would it be like to have little, or so little source intelligence within us, to be basically bumbling biological suits just walking around doing weird stuff. And the truth is, when there isn't a sufficient level, and many people have experiences of this, we spoke about this before, when you get near somebody who's very head-centric, very little heart connection, they can be very controlling, very domineering, and they can be push-pulling, and even in extreme cases, very violent. And you see that playing out in the world today, and it all comes back down to the simple root cause of how much source intelligence do you have inside you. Because when you have a sufficient level of source intelligence within you, comes with that compassion, intuition, the ability to balance, the ability to work with others in flow. A whole slew of things come in innately, because that is the nature of source intelligence. You have no need for war. Well, that's simply an artifact of people, a group of people with a sufficiently disconnected aspect to themselves, where suddenly they go so much into survival because they've lost the well source inside them. The wellspring of everything you have ever needed and will ever need, and everything going forward. If you shut that well source off, suddenly, now where do you get your energy from? What you need. They start taking it from others. That causes conflict. It causes war. To me, it's the root cause of all the problems. And it's all solved when we collectively choose to allow the source energy back in and say, remember who you really are. This is who you really are. You're not all of this rubbish you've been playing out, after centuries after centuries, and it really is that simple. That it doesn't get more complicated than that.
Fabulous. And one final question, David, before we go into the channeling, which will be wonderful. It's something I've heard you talk about, and I have talked about just ad infinitum, about the need to live from the inside out and not the outside in, because we've been so encouraged to give away our power to leaders, whoever, the television, whatever. So, we need to really live from the inside out, and that's part of our sovereignty. But there was another step in that, in my understanding, just happened before we came online. And it isn't just that you live from the inside out. I was actually listening to a wonderful man who was John Perkins. I don't know if you heard of it. He was a very successful economist and wrote lots of books. Anyway, he was with the indigenous people in the Andes, I believe, and he was very ill, and he thought he was going to die. He was so ill, and the indigenous people were encouraging him to eat the kind of diet that they eat, which includes all kinds of bugs and worms, and and he thought, oh, just no way, I could, I'm ill already, that's not going to help me. But then he looked at the vigor and the vitality of these indigenous people who, into very late age, can still hop up mountains, no problem at all. And he thought, well, if they're looking like that on that kind of diet, I better give that a go. So he shifted his perception from disgust to seeing it completely different as a way back to his health, and it saved his life. So and really this is what the ascended masters were doing, isn't it? It's a shift of perception, and you change the nature of how matter affects you.
You know, that's a very important point, because much of what we're going through is fundamentally a shift in our perception, because you are spot on that we have been convinced, right, almost from the word go, as soon as we could just sort of almost toddle around and walk around, we'd be watching programs that would convince us everything is outside of you, focus outside, just everything is outside. But the truth of the matter is that it is all a deception. It is all to try and trick you to take your focus away from your inner well and put it outside, because while it's outside, now you can be controlled.
Yeah.
But when your focus is back inside you again, and then suddenly you shift your perception of who you are, because a lot of the times we carry around very limiting perceptions of ourselves and the things that go on outside as well, that actually block the well source and the flow of that infinite source through us as well, in many different ways. And judgment itself, by its very nature, is a wish to stop source energy. It's saying no, So it's a very interesting one to look at, because I remember one being once saying, when somebody asked the question, where does evil come from? And so it all stems from your choice to use judgment, because when you use judgment, you block neutrality and you block source energy from flowing through. When source energy can't go into something, it can't harmonize it, synergizing it, bring it back into peaceful, intelligent flow. And so it gets destructive and it falls to pieces and does weird things, just like what we talked about before. And so, yes, the ability to come back within, and this is a big one, they're saying, humanity to change the most fundamental perception that they have is that they've been convinced to look everything outside of themselves, the life of what you live, all functionality, all need, all necessity, like it's all outside of you. Nothing could be further from the truth. Everything outside you is a direct reflection of the emanation you give off, and the universe is reflecting back to you what it is that you're broadcasting. It's saying, oh, this is what you've asked for. Here it is. That's what you're emanating. That's what I understand that you want. You may not know all of the pieces that you're emanating and know that you want or dislike them, but that is what I'm reading, And so the ability to change that perception from everything is outside to no, everything has always been inside. And I know that sort of has turned into a bit of a cliche a lot, in spiritual circles. Oh, it's all inside. The truth is, it is all inside. That is not a cliche. It's not a sort of fluffy kind of make you feel good thing. It is based in living energy consciousness, that everything sources from within you. And as this energy comes through and goes through your filters, the signature and quality of the energy changes to adapt its broadcast to exactly the filters and dross you have. And so therefore the universe sees, okay, that's the flavor you're asking for, so I'm going to give you this. And so people ask themselves, why do I keep getting this dude or this person or whoever it is keep bothering me with this problem? It's because you still have that, you're requesting it. You just don't understand how you are requesting it yet.
It's just a mirror.
And by going in, yes, it is a mirror. It's exactly that. And by going inside, what you do is you suddenly start to realize the sensation, the frequency of all those layers. Oh my goodness, I do have that. I have been requesting that. But now I'm aware of it, I can undo it. You can't undo something that you're not aware of because it's hidden to you. You have to make it known to yourself first. Then you have the conscious ability to change it. Like perspective, you have to be aware of a faulty perspective in order to change it, So, and I think that's a key thing, that, perspective, or the way you choose to see things, is a very, very important thing. But most important, how you choose to see yourself. You are the wellspring of everything in your life. You are the wellspring of everything that exists. And people say, oh, that sounds like bonkers. What do you mean by that? Well, that is your direct access to source intelligence. That same source intelligence created this solar system, this galaxy, this universe, all other universes, everything in existence. You are a part of that. What aspect of existence do you think you're not privy to, or don't have the ability to do that with? It's the same energy. That's you. This isn't some airy-fairy, fluffy, feel-good factor of, oh, yes, I'm great at it. It's not like that. In a very fun-loving, kind way, you literally are an emanation of source energy. Anything that source can do, you can do. But will you get all those perspectives, all those limitations out of the way so you can actualize that, if that makes sense? So yeah, that's really what we're doing. We're just getting all that stuff out of the way we've put in place. It's like we've messed up the house. I don't mean like, in a negative way, but we've opted to have this messy house, go in there and, oh yeah, it's really bad in here. There's stuff everywhere and life isn't so good. But what we're doing is we're clearing all that stuff out. So, I can have a great home now. It's beaming with support for me and the lifefulness that I am. Now I can have a good life. It's that kind of thing.
Beautiful, really fabulous. And if you're happy to, David, that was such helpful information, absolutely amazing as always. If you're happy to, would you like to share a message from your team for us all?
Yes, yeah, in the beginning, yes, Source Intelligence wanted to bring through a message, so, okay. Hello, dear beautiful souls. It is with great delight this opportunity comes to give you these energies. And as this one has said, it is the energies that are important. Energies ride words. Words are vibrational sounds that themselves carry energy. It is seen that many of you are going through some of the deepest puzzle pieces that you have selected yourselves to come here and work through in the way that this one has already spoken of. Dear souls, everything in your human way is okay. You are performing these tasks of solving these energetics with profundity, and this is not said lightly. From higher perspectives, there are many beings, and as the collective whole of Source Intelligence, what you are doing and have done is beyond all measure of where you expected to be, even simply from a view of a handful of years ago. And you are reminded again, you are Source Love Presence. You may deny that, but that is your truth. And that is the beauty of your choice ability. You can choose to deny that truth, and indeed live a very uncomfortable life in doing so, as you have seen. Or you may choose to embrace your truth and to live a life that is unending in the beauty, the sweetness, the compassion, and the unending exploration and adventure of who you really are. And that is what you are choosing. There are many races of beings that have attained very high levels. Their joy is ecstatic to watch you unfold in this process. They understand and they know the density through which you are working. And they delight at each step you take towards greater inner unfoldment. And what is it to unfold within you? And in truth, there is nothing to unfold. You are simply clearing the filters that have fooled you that you are not source love intelligence, that you are somehow separated. Dear sweet souls, this is nothing but an illusion. And it is an illusion that you both opted to undergo and you have added to over many years of very difficult and trying lifetimes. And this is very understandable. And add into this mix human emotion. Human emotion is very strong, is it not? It was designed to be that way. And this is part of the delightful package that is unfolding ahead of you. For with your powerful emotional abilities, the delight of living in human form, as this process unfolds, will become a pivotal sweetness of existence. This is one of the many reasons why many races are absolutely in excitement of what humanity is going to move into and become. The human form ability to work with energies is profound. And you have entered timelines that have opened up new possibilities that were not considered possible before. And this has been spoken of before. And it will be said again. There is a new wave of energy, as has been said before, the tip of which will reach you at the very beginning of this December. As this wave unfolds, and there will be waves within waves within waves, and on top of waves, we will say, but we will not spoil the surprise by unraveling the beautiful wave packets that are coming your way. Because it is very much hoped for you as a human being to take the opportunity to move into greater surrender to yourself, to experience yourself. To experience what it is to be love in human form. For this is what it is all about. You are source love intelligence, a tip of which is filling the human form that you have, and in doing so is transforming that human form and all of the components, the structural components that make up that human form. And so you are living through a multitude of overlayering evolutions, both within your consciousness and your human form, and your experience of the environment that reflects that outside of you. And now one last message on the wave. This wave has been created and is part of new timelines that you are entering and have located yourself on. And it would be said that even 10 years of your lifetime ago, this wave was not a possibility. Congratulate yourselves, sweet ones, for the work that you have done, the work that you have done together, in groups and individually, has made such a profound emanation from within you and from within the earth, that these new delightful timelines now exist. And it is asked of you to feel the profundity of what you have done. And you did this with limited access to your source intelligence within. Do you feel, sweet ones, the delight and the profundity of what you have done. To coin a human phrase, it is simply extraordinary. It is beautiful to behold, and it is a delight beyond all words can explain to watch and feel the human form evolve as rapidly and in the levels and ways that it is doing so. And so, sweet ones, in leaving this message, you are reminded once again, you are the sweetness, you are the compassion, you are the gentleness, you are the everything that love is. And please take a moment to feel that within you. Feel the almost childlike simplicity of the sweetness of who you are in your core. That is your true nature. Do you feel it, sweet ones? And should you feel any doubt, any lack in self-value, simply let it go, none of which has any truth or founding to it at all. It is simply another filter that you have placed in misunderstanding many experiences over many lifetimes. The unending quality of your profoundness is there, it has been there, and it shall ever be there, and can never leave. Where else would you go? Source love is the everything. It is who you are, and it is who you are remembering yourself to be. Be at peace, sweet ones. This process and your inner process is unfolding magnificently. And again, beyond all words, any words that can describe this, because they do not exist. This is an experience. It is a beautiful and profound experience. Allow yourselves to feel the beauty of who you are. There is no measure to give you to explain the beauty of who you are, but you will come to realize this. You will come to feel this, even if you do not now. You are love, sweet ones. You always have been, and you ever shall be, love. And so it is.
Oh, thank you, David. That was incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful.
Sorry, carry on.
I mean, and you know, how thrilling for humanity to realize that we are that far ahead of expectation, that we've created a whole new timeline with the kick of this new wave at the beginning of December. I mean, you know, that's a whisper of time. So, you know, it is so thrilling, so exciting, so reassuring, so beautiful to know how well we've done, even though in our humble efforts day to day, you know, you may be on your own at home, sitting on your own sofa, you don't fully understand the scale of what we have done collectively. And it's so thrilling to get that validation.
Yes, it is. And you know, when that was coming through, that feeling of that wave coming through in this new timeline, I really felt just the profundity of what had what has been occurring and what's coming. And I really felt that I could see these parallel timelines that we were on that are just fading away now, and they were going to be okay. They were going to be pretty good, but I don't think anywhere as beautiful and as magical as what we are now on. And I would say to everybody, when you think about what's going on in the world, just please do not fixate on any of that stuff. Like we have stuff leaving, so does the earth, and so does the environment, so does the air. The air is cleansing, the water is cleansing, the soil is cleansing, everything is cleansing. And so all those old packets of really yucky energy, will cling to those people who are in that state and low enough to be receptive to it, who are creating all this awful dross. That is leaving. It is passing away, and you will see everything will come good in the end. It will be all okay. So yeah, just feel that, and don't just take my word for it. I always say to people, feel the truth of that. Go inside and feel the truth of what is being said within you. That is where you're going to feel it truly. Not just listening to some dude talk and spring words. It's feeling inside you, which is the real truth.
You've given us some truly beautiful gifts in this session, David. Some really beautiful gifts, and that channeling at the end was truly exquisite. And I know everybody will have loved it and felt it in their hearts and be so grateful to you as the vessel through which this information is coming. So we're so grateful.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. I mean, it's such a joy to be able to, initially I was very hesitant about coming forward and doing this stuff, but I can see the true nature of just how this information is helping people, and that's really the central point of it all. It's so whoever's listening to this, whatever great ahas or changes or positive movements forward you get from any of this, it could be something very small or very big. That's the beauty of it. So I hope that you get many of them, to help you forward in whatever path that you're living.
Yeah. God bless you, David. It's just wonderful to share with you, and I'm so grateful you're my friend. I'm so grateful you're so happy to share it with everyone out there, and I'm just sending just a huge cyber hug and a load of love.
Yeah, and love to you as well, Pam. I'm likewise. I'm so grateful that you're a good friend and a dear friend, and I'm just so happy that you kept reaching out. Because I lost so many of your emails with all the questions that were coming through, and I'm so glad that you persisted, because it's just such a beautiful you're such a beautiful person and a beautiful soul, and I mean that truly. I'm not just trying to butter your bread or whatever you want to call it. You really are. You've done tremendous work for people, and you have a massive following for a reason, because people get such upliftment from you, and that in of itself is a very beautiful thing as well. So and thank you. So
bless you. Well, I know everybody's going to love this and probably watch it many times over, and just feel the joy, feel the upliftment, and stop the fretting, relax into the present.
Yes, exactly.
Because we are rocking it currently, apparently.
We are, yes. And just one last message, if you wouldn't mind, is just to remind people that, like the Arcturians said, like the Arcturians come through, and my higher self said, always mentions, is just remember to bring yourself back to your core, back to your heart center, and just a simple intention to do that. And even just using your breath actually centers you in your core. It's no coincidence that everything is set up the way it is. Every time you take an in-breath,